Hey everyone, welcome back to the Shift with Elena podcast. We dove deep into hormone imbalances and their impact on women's health in this episode with Stasi Grenfell from Victress Movement. We covered common symptoms like fatigue, cravings, and irregular periods, as well as the importance of self-awareness. Stasi's insights on PCOS, endometriosis, and the role of customized fitness for women were truly enlightening. We also discuss her entrepreneurial journey, balancing motherhood, and the role of GLP-1 drugs, aka Ozempic, in weight loss. Tune into this wealth of knowledge on women's wellness and the unique challenges women face. And as always, subscribe, share, comment, and come back for more. Stasi, welcome to the Shift podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Before we started recording, I told you how passionate I am about fitness and wellness, and I'm really excited to chat with you. And for my side, just as I'm getting older and I'm approaching 40 in a couple of years, I've seen so many different changes in my life and my lifestyle and my body and all sorts of things. And so I'm really curious to dive in. But before we dive into all of those different things, talk to me a little bit about how did you get into fitness and wellness? What is the career story? Take us as back far as you want to.
Sure. So I'll take it back to my childhood just because movement has been a part of my life forever. I was an athlete. I played 3 sports in high school and I ended up going to play college softball. I went away to school for sports. I've always been very driven and competitive. And so there's a lot of crossover between athletics and business. We can talk more specifically about that, but that kind of led me to, I graduated. I worked in business I've been in management, business consulting, and business ownership for almost 20 years. But the fitness piece, it's always been a part of my life. But when I went through the motherhood transition, I really struggled to find my, zen in movement again. My body felt foreign. And so I wasn't used to that. I had run a marathon before, I was a collegiate athlete. It was very difficult for me during that stage of life. And so that's kind of where my interest in this stage of life specific movement came in. And that was around the time that I was introduced to my now business partner, Stasi. So
yeah, I love it that it's Stasi and Stacey. I had to take a double look when I was like, am I emailing the right person? When we
oh,
were
I know. And
connecting.
people get so confused too because they'll talk to one of us and they're like, I talked to you. And I'm like, no, you didn't talk to me. You talked to my
Yeah,
business partner, but it's fine.
yeah. Very cool. Talk to me a little about the name. I'm always curious how people come up with the name. So it is Victress Movement, I assume, MVMT. That's what it stands for, right? Movement, I
Yes,
assume.
and so it started with Victress. When just to kind of give you the backstory, I was pregnant. I needed a trainer. I found a trainer who specialized in prenatal and postpartum movement. She is now my business partner. She continued to take on more clients during the time I was training with her, and I'm like, we need to open a brick and mortar. Like this needs to be a thing. And so when we started the process of business planning, we wanted to have a very strong name that didn't specifically, so movement wasn't even a part of the name until just recently, and I can explain that. But we wanted to find a very strong name that did not pigeonhole us into one specific type of fitness and had an overarching strength to it. So Victress means strong female or victorious female. And there's so much more to just moving the physical body in what we do, the mental health strength. We take a very holistic and somewhat evidence-based approach to what we do. And so we wanted to make it a very broad name where we could do a lot of different things with it. So that's where it came from. We added movement when we decided to scale. And movement has double meaning, obviously movement of the body, but also movement as in a movement. Like we are going to be changing lives and the movement of bringing this thing across the country and hopefully the world.
Amazing. I love it. I'm always curious how people come up with names. So I love to hear that story. Thank you for sharing
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
Um, I'm curious, at least in my own story, and I'm sure the audience probably relates as well, is we feel that, if we just go to the gym, it's the magic pill, it's the magic formula, right? Over the years, I've learned, obviously, this is not it, and it's just one of it. So if somebody's listening to this and, they've maybe struggled with just wellness, because I feel like that's I always say, like, we have become so educated and we have so much access to certain things, but it seems like as a population, at least in America, we're getting more unhealthy, more burnt out. So, if somebody's listening to this and they're like, I want to make a change, like, where do I start? Like, what are the things that you can start with?
I mean, first of all, the hardest thing is to start doing it, right? Like the taking the step or taking the leap of faith. I think a lot of people are all or nothing in our society, and I think it's been very difficult, like you said, especially people that are busy. They have families, they have jobs, right? Like fitting it in and like making time for it. So I think really one of the things that I would say is just recognizing that it doesn't have to be perfect and that the journey is just that. It's a journey. There's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be it's not linear. So really just understanding that like you can make you can you can block time, you can make time for yourself and your wellness, and it's important because you can show up much better in all the other facets of your life, but it doesn't have to be perfect. And even if it's 10 or 15 minutes, you putting the time and the effort in is going to provide that mental clarity, and you're going to feel much better about yourself. We always say like no one's ever regretted a workout, right? Like you've never gone to the gym or spent 15, 20 minutes exercising and regretted the time that you spent on your wellness. So that's really just my perspective. I'm an all or nothing person, and I've influxed and outfluxed from fitness my entire life. And it has been very challenging to break that, but I think the way that we do things specifically at Victress and providing that mental health component to what we do really changes women's perspective on how they look at fitness.
Mm. What's funny is my partner is also very active and so am I, but he can just do like, whatever he's doing, he's like exercise his hit and he can eat like a bag of cookies at nighttime and wake up with a six pack. Like it's that ridiculous. And so I blame it on genetics on him as well. He's like, it's not just my hard work. I was like, okay, yeah. I was like, you don't have all these hormones. So for women, it seems to be that it's much harder for us, it seems. At least maybe that's my assumption, my experience, but it seems to be much harder. And especially as you get with age. So talk to me a little bit about just like the consideration we as women have to have for exercise, for maybe nutrition and just overall wellness, because we don't function, and everybody's different, right?
Right. So women we're under resourced, underrepresented, and under researched. Okay. So when you're looking at fitness studies and when people are putting together programming and nutrition, we have not really been studied very much. And so a lot of the science behind fitness and nutrition isn't necessarily specific to us. And so, yes, we are different. We're cyclical beings. Not only do we have menstrual cycles, but we also, as we age, our hormones shift. We go through puberty and then young adulthood. We have children, being pregnant and postpartum are, huge hormone shifts. So it is more difficult. And then you mentioned pre and postmenopause, then you go through another change. So we're constantly going in and out where men are pretty consistent across the board. Yeah, they lose some to testosterone as they age, but really they don't their hormones don't shift very much. So they're easier to study, right? And I think that that's why it's been so difficult for women to really get the right information and the right knowledge and the right resources, right? And that's what we're trying to do as being able to provide this resource that women really haven't had access to.
Mm.
So, yeah, I mean, to answer your question, it is different. It's very challenging. But I think really the key for women is to find the right resources. There are, hormone specialists out there. There are dietitians out there that specialize in the female body and they understand those hormone shifts. So, obviously, endocrinology is also a huge part of that too. People with Hashimoto's and hormone imbalances are going to struggle losing weight. And now with like the GLP-1s, that's also another hot topic, but you know, we're recognizing that there are so many components to this weight loss thing and body composition thing than we ever really realized.
Mm. Since you mentioned GLP-1, I want to get your take on it, or aka Ozempic, right?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
So, I my take is it's here to stay. And being in fitness, I think that it's so unique because there's two camps in fitness. There's the camp that in the industry where they've just fully embraced it, and they understand that it's here to stay, and they're trying to do what they can to work along with it. And then there's a camp that's like, you know, that's the easy way out in quotation marks. My opinion, I'm more in the camp of it's not going anywhere. And full disclosure, I have had hormone issues my entire life. I went through IVF. I'm now pregnant with my fourth child. I've
Wow.
struggled to lose weight. Part of the main reason we started Victress was I got pregnant when I was only 8 months postpartum and I had gained 65 pounds.
Mm.
So my body was completely different. So back to the drug. I think the drug is a great tool, like any other tool, but you still have to make the lifestyle changes. So like if it's not, I don't think it's necessarily meant to be on for a lifetime for weight loss. I don't think that it's good for anyone to be on any drug for a lifetime unless it's to like balance your thyroid or something that's like a chronic issue.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, if someone has diabetes, yes, absolutely, that makes sense. But, I did take those meds after my last breastfeeding journey to help me get back to the normal body composition that I was used to. I had no
Mm-hmm.
hormones in my system, so along with HRT, so I had hormone replacement therapy, and I also took a very low dose of Zepbound, which is trizepatide. And, I lost 40 pounds, but I strength trained the entire time. So I was able to actually gain muscle, but lose fat. And the biggest thing with the med that I noticed was the mental health aspect of it. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think we really recognize how much our brain tells us in terms of how much to eat, when to eat, what to eat. And this med really does change your brain chemistry.
Mm-hmm.
You're not craving the alcohol, you're not craving the refined sugars. You want what's good for you. And when you're hungry and you eat until you're full and you stop. Um, our bodies have, I think it's an environmental thing over time as we've evolved as humans, our bodies have just adapted to the crap we put in our body.
Yeah.
And so, it's a fascinating drug, and I think that it could potentially change the landscape of healthcare and medicine. But it's also, again, like I said, it needs to be used as a tool, not necessarily like a fix-all.
Mm. Yeah, I tend to agree. I think it's helpful in some cases, maybe hurtful in others, but it has to be, as you said, like there has to be other like regimen to go along with it, and that's the issue. Is like a lot of people are not educated about. It's not just you just take this and you live your life. No, no, no. You need to make sure your nutrition is on point, your strength training is on point, and all this. So you're not just losing fat. I mean, you're not losing muscle. So there's a lot to it. Yeah, absolutely. So when you were I'm just curious, because I had some friends that also took it and they had some success with it, and some others that didn't.
Mhm.
But when you stopped, was it fine to go back, like in your experience, like when you stopped, like was it fine to go back to like a normal lifestyle, and like did you know what I mean, did your food did you get hungry again, did you want to drink something, like did that
Yeah.
spark or did it stay?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I already have really good behaviors. Like
Mm,
I own a gym. I have always ate really well, and my weight gain was due to hormonal fluctuations from pregnancy. And then obviously after, when you're breastfeeding, some people lose a lot of their weight from breastfeeding, and
yeah.
then some people hold on to it. I am just one of those people that holds on to it. And so when I got done breastfeeding, my hormones just didn't come back. And so I wasn't cycling. And so I went to a clinician and I was like, listen, I don't feel good. There's something
Mm-hmm.
wrong. And so she drew my hormones and I literally had none. So
Mm-hmm.
I started taking estrogen and progesterone and, my skin color came back. I started to lose weight just from doing that.
Yeah.
I think women don't recognize that having like your levels of estrogen and progesterone affect the way that you metabolize things. Your whole endocrine system does. And so my metabolism, my metabolic health at that time was just shot because of my body was working in overdrive to produce milk for my child and
Mm-hmm.
holding on to everything that I had. So that did help. And then adding in the trizepatide helped obviously even more. I lost the weight. I took it from December of 2023 to March, so not a very long time. I
Mm-hmm.
lost 35 pounds. When I stopped, I gained back probably about 5 pounds in water weight, and I've kept it off. Like it
Mm-hmm.
hasn't changed at all.
Mm-hmm.
I did body scans through that whole process.
Mm-hmm.
And so during that process, I had lost that much weight. I think I started at 33% body fat and I got down to 22% body
Mm-hmm.
fat and gained 5 pounds of muscle.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty
So,
good. Yeah.
yeah, it's fascinating because it changed my metabolism is what it did. And so when
Mm.
it's done and my body was back to its normal size, um, it just maintained because my behaviors were there. I was continuing to exercise. I'm a very active human being, so I haven't really gained any weight back, but I know it's not the case for everyone.
Mm.
And that kind of just goes back to what we were talking about. Like, if you don't have the behaviors, if you're on the meds and you're still eating cookies every day and not
Yeah.
changing what you're consuming and the exercise piece, the
Mm.
chances of you gaining the weight back are probably pretty high.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm curious how it's gonna unfold. Just like in general, that space. It's very very interesting and still so new. So it's kind of exciting to kind of watch that, and it's definitely helping a lot of people. That's for sure. Um, the you mentioned hormones, especially when like hormone replacement therapy.
Mhm.
When would one need one? How do you know if your hormones are off like wacky? Because I've gone through a lot of that and like I felt it all, and I was like, so now I'm like when I train people myself, I'm like the person that I train. A lot of my clients are 45 plus, so I train more like older clients, and then first thing I tell them, I'm like, this is not going to solve everything else. Like the things you're feeling, you probably need to go check your hormone, you need to do your blood work, you need to check your hormone, you need to do all that, like do all the tests and then come back and let's talk about it type thing. But how do you know like your hormones are going wacky? Are there any specific signs?
I think, well, first of all, there's so many different hormones. Like you have your stress hormone, cortisol. And again, I'm not a doctor, so I
Yeah.
don't want to claim that I am.
Disclaimer. Yeah.
Disclaimer, this is all based on personal experience. So estrogen, progesterone, like you can usually feel like if you're off, if you're in tune with your body, which not everyone is, but if you have self-awareness on like what feels normal and what
Mm-hmm.
doesn't, then I think you would have like a general understanding that maybe something's wrong. Your
Mm-hmm.
skin color, whether or not you're tired all the time, lack of energy, um, maybe you are craving more sweets than normal. Like there are so many different components and symptoms to a hormone imbalance. Maybe it's acne. Maybe you're having irregular periods or not having a period at all. Those are all different symptoms of having a hormone imbalance. Um, PCOS, endometriosis are also two really, really common things that we see in women. A lot of women that come to us too have those hormonal challenges, and we refer. The one thing that at Victress that we're really, really passionate about is having a list of resources of clinicians and people that businesses or clinicians that we partnered with in our community that we're able to refer these women to
Mm.
do it all, right? Like
Right.
we're the fitness professionals, we're not necessarily the hormone professionals. So I think really just like if you have those issues, looking around in your area or asking someone that you feel that you trust and has a good resource that you could reach out to get tested.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I think that those are all pretty common symptoms, but some women just don't even know. But
Yeah.
the difficulty in losing body fat is usually a good sign that there's probably a
Mm.
hormone issue.
Yeah, it's so true that some people are just not aware, and we kind of tend to numb down these whatever we feel. Or I often hear, oh, it's just how I am, or I'm just always tired, and not realizing that, and then and they'll just have more coffee or something else, and it's like, oh, I'm always stressed and I'm always tired, so it's like coffee in the morning, alcohol in the evening, and it's like, no, 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 this is not how you're supposed to feel. You should feel energetic, and you should feel. And I had a client tell me the other day, she was like, I didn't realize how bad I felt until I felt good. So when you don't even realize how like when you feel better, you're like, oh my God, like that's how I was feeling. You're like, what? And so you don't realize it until you make the change. It's very, very interesting. Yeah.
It is, and I think that if you're a high performer or an entrepreneur or someone that has high demands at home or at work, it can just make those issues worse. And like you said, like the coffee, the alcohol, and don't get me wrong, I love myself a drink. I do drink. But it's a poison. Like, you're
Yes.
literally putting poison in your body. So, there are going to be adverse effects to that, and I think that we have to recognize the damage that does to our body. And so, like, that's another thing. If you're consuming a lot of toxins, that's gonna affect your hormones.
Yeah. I had again another client told me, I think it was just the other day, and she said, "Do you know what's funny? When we're pregnant as women, we cut out coffee and alcohol, and your skin is glowing. Your look so good. Like you're even like your skin is glowing right now. Like you look amazing, and it's like you can just like you look healthy, right? And it's like, but because we do it for the baby, but then it's like when that's done, we're like going back to coffee and alcohol and stuff like
Oh,
that. She's
yeah.
like, so it's like because it's bad for us, so we know it's bad, but then we stopped doing it. So it's pretty interesting. Yeah, it's we'll do it for somebody else, but won't do it for us, at least as women, right? We'll do it for the kids.
I think it's so like, human behavior is so interesting because I feel like we do those things because they're societal norms. It's
Yeah.
not necessarily because we want to. We just think that, okay, this is what's gonna wake me up and make me feel better, and this is what's gonna make me feel relaxed and chill at night. But there's so many other things that we could be doing. And I think that that is starting to shift. Like, I'm seeing more and more on social media and just in the media in general, articles about, there's dry bars popping up all over. There's obviously more and more attention put towards women's health, which it's a blessing to just hear that there's an initiative for um, improvements in the research funding, all of the things. So.
Yeah. Why choose to start a business? You could have done, you could have gone and worked for, a number of organizations within the space. Why you decided to go the entrepreneurship route?
I've always so just a little bit of backstory. I have a management background. I the management roles that I had were all performance driven, and to be able to see and reap the benefits of my hard work was very rewarding for me. I also am very motivated by fear. And I tell people this, like, anytime I get interviewed, and they ask the question, like, "What keeps you up at night?" Well, fear, obviously, but I'm addicted to it. Like, it gives me a high. The risk and the fear gives me a high, and it pushes me and drives me to move forward. And so, that was really the main reason why I went into entrepreneurship, because it gave me that satisfaction of, like, I can have the control and can have the experience of driving a mission that I'm very passionate about forward, and reaping the benefits of beautiful change. Like, you evolve so much as an entrepreneur, and it's a constant state of growth. And I just love that. Like, that's how I've lived my life since I was a little girl, and I've always
Mm.
had big ambitions, and, um but what they don't tell you is how lonely it is, because it is a challenging experience, right? Like, there are so many things that you go through as an entrepreneur that only an entrepreneur understands. And so I would say that's been the most challenging part of this journey, but I wouldn't trade it for the world.
What has been the biggest lessons you've learned about yourself throughout this journey?
I think the biggest, and this is just, my motherhood journey and my entrepreneurship journey have been like in parallel.
Yeah.
And before I had children and before I became an entrepreneur, I felt very much in control. And so as I have navigated both motherhood and entrepreneurship simultaneously, I've recognized that there is just so much out of our control. Um, so being okay with that and recognizing that sometimes we have to pivot and sometimes change has to happen in order for you to move forward, even if it's something that comes in your way that isn't necessarily of your doing or something that you have any control over. So I think that's the biggest thing, is recognizing that like not every day is going to go your way, and you need to just recognize that it always works out, but you have to be ready for pretty much anything.
How do you manage all of these things? You have 3 kids now, fourth one on the way, right? You have a business, a family, and just like friendships, I'm sure as well.
Yeah,
So it's like you have to
yeah.
manage all these different things. How do you do that?
I think time management I was a student athlete, so it's always been a very high skill of mine. I'm not by nature very organized, but I'm very good at motivating other people and delegating certain things to other people. It really does take a village, whether it's, me or someone else doing it. I can put together a plan and have strategy to ensure that things get done, whether that's in my business, whether that's at home. I'm very grateful to have like as an entrepreneur, I feel like the partner you choose is so important.
Mm.
And my husband, I mean, God bless him. Like, he listens to entrepreneurship podcasts. Like, he tries to do everything he possibly can to understand what's going on in my life. And he provides words of affirmation, all of the things. So it does take a village. We have a lot of support from family, with our kids, and then just the entrepreneurship circle, getting connected to other entrepreneurs. Also, my staff, I would say, plays a huge part. They up-level me, and they, are always managing up, and I've learned so much from them. I feel very, very grateful for my business partner too. It's very much like a marriage, it's never 50-50. It kind of ebbs and flows, and we've had a lot of loss and infertility and stuff like that. And so during those times of depression and sadness, she really stepped up and took care of me. So I mean, I do it because I mean, like, I can do all of the things because I have other people, but
Mhm.
also having strong boundaries too. I think
Mhm.
that's something that has to be in place. Like, I don't always have to say yes. And I know it's very difficult when you're in a leadership role, but I've really learned to say no over the past 6-7 years, and that's been hard because I'm a yes person.
Mhm.
But boundaries are critical.
Mm. And then you made the decision to franchise your business as well. So what has kind of led you to decide on that? Because that's a whole other thing.
It is a whole other thing, and yeah, so just a little bit of context there. We had 2 locations that we opened on our own in Nebraska. We have had inquiry after inquiry after inquiry. We've been open for almost 6 years, and of just women reaching out and saying, "Oh, we need one of these here. We need one of these here. We need one of these here." And so it was, if I'm being honest, very overwhelming. And I have a background in management and consulting. And the consulting piece, I really loved the idea of empowering other people to be small business owners. And I still do that. I enjoy it. So that was a big part of why we wanted to go the franchise route. Now, franchising, just disclaimer, isn't what you think it is when you go into it. So it seems very simple. Like you have this business, you put all the processes in place and you replicate it and you provide, the business in a box to somebody else. Over the past year, so we decided to franchise in October of last year. We are still franchising. We are a franchise. We have our franchise disclosure document. We spent lots of money on getting that together. We have several franchises we've sold, but we have kind of pivoted in the last couple of months to continuing to opening our own affiliate locations, just because we can open them faster, we have access to more capital, and it's just the process you just have a little bit more control over. And what we found is these women that are reaching out to us, they just want what we have in their community. They don't necessarily want to be business owners. They want to be a part of it. So we've actually engaged with, I think 4 or 5 women across the country that are going to manage locations that we own. And then we're able to provide an opportunity for them to make an impact on their community. So we're still able to empower these women through managing a location and being a part of the mission, but they're not necessarily going to be franchisees, which is okay. We're still going to entertain the franchisee route or the franchise route if someone is like the perfect candidate for it. But starting a business costs a lot of money and it requires management skills. Obviously, they need to have a background in fitness. Like there are a lot of different components to it. So this just allows for a little bit more flexibility.
Yeah, no, that's really good actually. If you you mentioned you want to go international, where would you go first? What would be your first international, like top 3?
Australia or New Zealand for sure.
Why?
I mean, they're both communities or cultures are really into fitness, and I think that they're also very pro-woman. And so I think that having the opportunity to be in an area where females are, put on a higher level and the concept is understood. Love to go to Europe. I mean, there are so many different. If I'm being honest, I have not put a ton of thought to like the international strategy yet.
Yeah.
But I would love to go to Europe or Australia or New Zealand probably first.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, it's I think just having that community of women, I think is so important for that support. And it's like you have your, at least in one partner, like I have certain things that I can share with him and I can do with him, but like when it comes to certain things, like I don't want to, and I don't want to even work out with it. He does his own workouts, and then and he's just like, why don't you do this? And I was like, leave me alone, I want to do this. So I think just being around other women and somebody who just understands all the different changes that we go through. I mean, like I said, like I'm 38 now, and I've just experienced such drastic changes over the last 5 years. And I'm like, who is this person? So it's and having that support and like the community and the experts like yourself and your team to be able to like guide through that, I think is super important. Because I don't see that many. I'm trying to think of I don't see that many like women focused fitnesses, right? Like that are around, especially in that holistic approach, at least on the, I'm sure there are some, but like in my area, there's not much that I'm trying to think of one and nothing comes to mind. Maybe they don't do good marketing. I don't know, but I haven't found, you know what I mean? Like haven't come across anything over
Oh
here.
yeah. I mean, you look at like Soul Cycle and some of like the spin studios, Orange Theory. If you were to look at the demographics that go to those places, I would say it's probably at least 60% women. So the market for boutique fitness is primarily women, regardless. The difference in what we do, and there are a few other, like there's a Blush Boot Camp, which is a women's specific boot camp facility that I believe is a franchise. There's a couple other ones, but the difference is we really are taking this evidence-based approach and looking at, okay, what are we seeing? Like, how are women being affected by the hormonal shifts that you're talking about, the stage of life differences? And then how can we adapt our movement to work along with our body versus just going in and going hard and doing the exact same thing every single day. Like, and this is not a bash on Orange Theory or F45, but when you're doing very high intensity workouts and you have a hormonal issue, it's going to make your hormonal issue worse.
Mm-hmm.
So I think just recognizing that, like, the calorie burn isn't necessarily always best for our body, and we need to
Mm-hmm.
recognize that we do go up and down, and maybe that is good for some people and for some women, like, you know, high performing endurance athletes. They understand their bodies, they understand how to fuel their bodies, and maybe that's the path that they continue to take for the rest of their life, and that's okay. But
Mm-hmm.
there are some women, like someone with Hashimoto's, them going and trying to run a marathon is probably not the smartest idea for their
Mm-hmm.
adrenal system. So there's just so many different components to it that I don't feel like a lot of people think about. And there are some great researchers and great people out there in the community. Gabrielle Lyons is one of them.
Yeah.
Stacey Sims is another. I don't know if you've read the book
Yeah.
Roar.
I
Yeah.
haven't read them, but I love both of them. Yeah.
Yeah, so both great resources, and so my business partner and our lead strategy officer, they wrote like a Bible of a training manual for all of our locations and for our staff, and they really dug into all of the research and the statistics that we do have, but also considering what we see in the gym
Mm-hmm.
every single day. So, you know, when you see a prenatal woman, when you see a postpartum woman, or if you see someone that's going through premenopause and those shifts and how they're feeling, we ask those questions. We see the person in front of us. And I can't tell you how many women that are, you know, I'm 38 too, so that are my age that have started doing our menopause program because it just feels better, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Interesting. Oh.
they're not feeling great about their body, they're not feeling great about how the normal workout feels. Let me try, and we suggest it. Why don't you try the menopause program or the postpartum program and see how your body feels?
Mm.
And they love it, and they stick with it, and that's
Yeah.
totally fine, you know? So, there are so many different things that we can do to shift and, make adjustments to what movement feels good to us. You
Mm-hmm.
know, some people, maybe it's just walking, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
maybe just taking a 3-mile walk every day is enough for them, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, no, it totally does. Do you guys do, so do you do is it just like a personal fitness, like a, sorry, personal training, or is it groups, or is it just different programs? So is it classes? Is it, how does it work with you guys?
Sure, so we have, our core competency is group class. So think like you go to an Orange Theory and you take a class with a group of 20 people. It's
Mm-hmm.
very similar to that, but we have different tracks. So you could have a prenatal woman in class, you could have a postpartum woman in class, you could have a menopause woman in class, and their workouts look a little bit different. So it's all in a software, so
Mm-hmm.
that they're able to pull it up, or if they're prenatal, the prenatal program is 4 to 42 weeks of pregnancy. We have like a laminated, like book basically that they take with them, and then they work through the workout. So um, it's a small, intimate setting. We don't exceed 16 people in a class.
Mm-hmm.
And then the coach, they're not instructing. So like in a lot of places, the coach will do the workout with you. They are actually walking around and coaching and cueing and providing support to the people that are taking the class. We also provide personal training, and we do small group training too. So if you have a group of girls that you want to do like a private session with, we offer that as well. But the majority of our members are the group class members, and then we also do open gym. We have workshops, educational workshops. There's just a handful of other things that we provide too.
Mm. Very cool. And I did want to comment on the different, like the Orange Series and F45, and I think it was one of the either Dr. Sims or the Lion. One of them was talking about the fact that, especially as you get older, we don't really need that high intensity. So it's not even just like one part of it is the hormones, but part of it is just we don't necessarily need that. We might actually just need a little bit of heavier weightlifting, and that's kind of what it is. Like you don't need to go and like kill yourself, and at this sweating and like all that. It could be like a little bit more low impact but heavier weight type thing. And I think a lot of people don't understand that. And even though I've been a fitness fanatic, but when I was younger, I would always go for those soul cycles for the Barry's boot camp, and I still do Barry's boot camp from time to time just to get that like heart rate up.
Yeah.
But it's a completely different game. When once you cross a certain like 35 plus and onwards, it just changes. And I think it's important to understand, because I see a lot of people go into these classes, and first I'm like, oh my god, you're hurting yourself. Like it's, like you're hurting
Yeah.
yourself. Stop doing that. You're doing it like the form and
Oh
just
yeah.
it's very a lot of education needs to be done, I think, around that for sure.
Absolutely, and I think that a lot of it is just they're chasing a high,
Yeah.
and that's okay. I mean, I will be the first to tell I love to run, I do, and I love to run because of the way that it makes me feel after. And, I think that a lot of people stick to that mode of fitness for that reason. They just like the way that it feels, they like to go hard, they like to sweat,
Mhm.
but the damage that it could do to your system is it's not great, especially like you said, as you're aging.
Mm.
And it's not a knock to these programs. I think that a
Right.
lot of the existing programs out there are starting to recognize that. I know that um, Orange Theory is adding in more strength training, which is awesome. But again, it goes back to quality movement too. If you're lifting heavy, but you're not practicing proper form, you could really get hurt and maybe not be able to build strength the way that you want to. So all of our programming really focuses on progressive overload, but we're not going to put weight on the bar until you are at a range of motion and you have the fundamentals to be able to lift appropriately.
Mm. Before I ask you my last question, although I can speak to you for hours, I'm sure, but I'll wrap this up. Where can people find you? Where do you hang out at the most, on social media, or where can they find Victress movement?
I am on LinkedIn a lot. Instagram is, in terms of Victress, we have all of our locations have an independent Instagram page, but then we also have our Victress movement page where we share a lot of podcast content, blogs. There's a lot of blog information on our website as well. But yeah, me personally, I'm usually on Instagram and LinkedIn.
Excellent. And the last question I ask all of my guests: what is one question you wish people would ask themselves more often?
Am I doing enough? Well, thank you
Perfect.
so much. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
your time.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you.
Bye bye.